What's up, guys? Wanted to go over this video of the author of the book Swing Kings. He wrote a book about all these guys who are independent swing coaches helping out MLB hitters. And just think it's kind of interesting. I don't know. So this was done in December 2019. And let's see. I also wanted to tell you guys I'm doing a top 20 pound for pound countdown, and it's using a new pound for pound equation. Number 20 I already did on the members only channel that I have, and that is Jim Wynn. So you guys, if you want to check that out, join the membership. You can also, if you join the membership, you can see my baseball swing course. So it's basically the course that covers everything that has to do with my approach. Also, there's apparel now on my website, theswingmechanic.com. You can check it out. Just click on apparel on the home page. And let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to talk about before we get into this. So this top 20 countdown, I will be posting some of them on the regular channel for those of you who have subscribed. Some of them will also be for the members only. So like I said, I just did number 20 in the video yesterday and posted that on the members only. And today I want to, or not today, but in the next video, I'm going to do number 19. I want to tell you that this new pound for pound equation is one that factors in batting average. So a lot of you guys were perturbed that the equation that I have doesn't factor in consistency. And you know, I just didn't like to try to factor in consistency using on base percentage or slugging, because I feel like those things have at least somewhat to do with the player's speed or his ability to bunt or get hit by a pitch or, you know, turn a double into a triple or a single into a double, and that's more of a speed thing. So I like however, I like batting average, because to me, batting average, like Bill James said, it does have a little bit of the power component. You know, it takes hitting the ball hard typically to have a high batting average. Yes, you do have those guys who slap the ball around the field. I'm not so keen on that kind of swing, but since the pound for pound equation still factors in at bats per home run, it kind of, you have to have high power and high consistency and low body weight. So that's what the equation finds, and I think it's really the best pound for pound equation to date. I know since I'd first developed the pound for pound equation, a lot of guys out there have been trying to come up with their own, and I think that's awesome. If you guys prefer like Sonny's pound for pound list, there's another one that was developed by another gentleman, and I think that's great. I really do. I think it's great. So number 19 will be coming up. That'll be a public video, so you guys will see that. Like I said, the first guy I did in the top 20 was Jim Wynn. Jim Wynn is number 20, and I'll be hitting 19 next. Excuse me. And let's get to this video, because I saw this video and I thought I'm going to do a reaction video to this. This guy, Jared Diamond, he wrote a book back in about 2018, 2019. And like I said, it's about these independent swing coaches who are working with major league hitters. Now, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just telling you the truth when I say I was the first guy to do this, you know, and I'm proud to say that, because look, when you're someone who trailblazes, you encounter a lot of resistance. And, it takes, to me, it takes somebody who's a little on the fringe, to trailblaze something. Nobody, like I said, was doing what I was doing when I was doing it. I've shown video of me in 2002 working with professional hitters, and I was on the news. I was like 24 years old, and they were calling me bringing basically video equipment into the dugout. They were calling that high technology, you know. And man, I brought a duffel bag of equipment with me. Now you just need a tripod and an iPhone, and you don't even really need the tripod. So, anyways, then I started working with major league guys. Ben Zobrist was the guy who really put me on the map. But there were others. There were many other college and professional hitters that I worked with and helped out. And this book actually does mention me, but it doesn't mention me by name. For some reason, I tell you, it's so odd, the position I'm in, because it's crazy to see, like, how resistant Major League Baseball really is on all levels. The coaches, they don't want to change what they've been doing. Even the front offices, like, don't even recognize that you worked with one of their players. And it's really bizarre. It's a multi-billion-dollar business at this point. And I really think that people out there are more concerned with job security oftentimes than they are actually improving a team. And we saw that with, like, if you watch Moneyball or read the book, people resist even when it's Billy Beane, who's basically spent his whole professional career in baseball, and he's trying to make this change, and the manager's resisting him, the scouts are resisting him. Everybody thinks he's gone off the deep end, and meanwhile he's trailblazing. So let's take a listen to this video. I'm not sure why Jared Diamond never reached out to me. Like I said, he interviews Andrew Friedman, the president of the Dodgers, in his book. And Andrew Friedman mentions me, but he doesn't mention me by name. I'm not sure if Jared just didn't want to mention me for some reason. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but honestly, I kind of took offense to it, because I was the person who started this, basically. And I was very young when I was doing it. That was another thing. Like, most of the guys that I was working with were older than me. When I worked with Raul Ibanez, he was older than me. A lot of the coaches that I would converse with were much older than me. And but anyways, so let's listen to this video, and we'll take it from, I'll pause it as I see fit.
Jared Diamond joining us. He is the author of Swing Kings. Fascinating topic here. Not just talking X's and O's and launch angle, but
they have it already up on the screen.
Oh, I don't have to hold it up anymore. No. Well, I happen to enjoy doing that, and it's good to have
Thanks for
Jared.
putting it up.
Sure, man. Look, you've covered the Yankees, the Mets for the Wall Street Journal. You cover Major League Baseball, the full animal for the Wall Street Journal. This book you've been working on for a while now, and the timing of it's so perfect. Harold and I really talk about this all the time. Everybody's got their guy. And how does your personal hitting guy work into the grand scheme of things when the team employs a series of hitting instructors? Give us kind of the big snapshot picture of that equation.
Yeah, it's interesting because throughout the decades, there really was one hitting coach who worked with players. And the qualifications for who became hitting coaches was pretty simple. It was, you sort of were an ex-player who then got into coaching, and you sort of taught what your hitting coach taught you, who probably taught what his hitting coach taught him. And there wasn't all that much of innovation in terms of, does this actually make sense?
He's 100% right on. This is something that I was realizing a decade before he was probably realizing it. Back in 2005, back when I was just starting, 2002. I mean, really, I started right out of college in 1998. But yeah, I realized there's something wrong here. There's a big opportunity, and what these teams are doing is they're just hiring former players, and I knew pretty quickly that players, even if they're great hitters, they don't necessarily understand the swing. That's a different thing. Understanding the swing and being a great player don't necessarily have to go hand in hand. So just because you're hiring former major league players, that's a big mistake. Actually, most of those guys tend to be the last people you really want to talk to, because most of the people who make it to the major leagues are pretty high in many of the skills of hitting pretty naturally. That's what I've noticed, especially when you have scouts out there. And back then, this is how they scouted, who were just looking for raw talent more than anything. I mean, nowadays they actually pick the guys who can get on base and can play the game, rather than just, this guy looks like a strong athlete, let's pick him. But he's right on. I mean, they just picked former, and maybe they still are to a large extent, just former major league hitters, and expected them to, and a lot of them are good, like, mental approach kind of guys, or good comforting guys, good guys to have around to kind of shoot the bull with as a hitter, and maybe they know how to relax you or something like that. But I always thought, yeah, but you still need somebody for the swing.
And what I think the book hopefully shows is sometimes the best innovation happens outside of sort of the establishment, where there's no politics, there's no pressure, there is no sort of institutional history.
That's 100% established and obvious and absolutely true. Thomas Kuhn, in his book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, wrote about how new ideas come from those who are on the fringe, those who are on outside of the establishment.
And you have these guys who did their own research, did their own work, and started coming up with ideas about how to teach hitting, how to teach the swing, that maybe differed than what was traditional, but has proven to work for some guys. And now you're seeing these people actually get hired by major league teams and reshape these hitting departments that organizations have.
Yeah, I think what's happened in this generation, they've unlocked the power, and it's really. I was reading a snap of your book, but you got Ted Williams in there, and a lot of this goes back to Ted's teachings.
Yeah,
and he was so far in advance. And I remember Jack Riley, who was the head baseball coach.
They always speak so ambiguously. Like, he just said, a lot of this goes back to, they never even, what are we talking about? And I know what they're talking about. They're talking about swinging up more. See, the weird thing is even though there are a lot of swing coaches out there and there are methods going on, I disagree with all of them. I would have disagreed with myself 10 years ago. And I would have admitted 10 years ago that I'm not on the right track. I mean, 10 years ago, I was in a phase of taking myself away from teaching to revise my understanding of the swing. I wasn't happy with it. But what's kind of frustrating from where I'm sitting is there's so much like, whoa, the swing is, man, it's so much more advanced these days, and guys are teaching it so differently. And it's like, yeah, but they're way, just because there are a lot of expensive machines being used, these guys aren't teaching a swing method that is really effective. I mean, there are a lot of things about it that are kind of frustrating. I mean, One is, I agree with these guys who are like old school guys in a sense, like Jeff Fry, and you can tell Harold Reynolds is kind of like that too. I agree with them that all this new stuff that is popular is kind of overblown. I mean, it basically comes down to they're just trying to swing up more. I mean, honestly, that, as crazy as that is, it sounds like, oh, that's so oversimplified. It is. I mean, to me, that's the only thing that this new school swing style is teaching. Swing up more, and it's all based on the launch angle numbers that everybody's like, oh, that changed the game, and I don't know. I don't think it's done much of anything, honestly. I mean, maybe there's a slight improvement in just the way that guys are kind of going for home runs more and swinging harder. Maybe that's a little bit better than, say, the 80s and 90s, where guys weren't really swinging, they didn't have the mentality of hitting the ball as hard as possible. They were more trying to slap the ball, and that's what it was taught to do. But that's not a mechanical thing. That's just guys are swinging harder, and that's good. But the mechanics, just purely positions that they achieve through the swing, I don't think those have improved. And you talk about the performances of Barry Bonds and the unprecedented performance of Barry Bonds or of Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, now Aaron Judge. Well, those guys are huge guys. Like, come on, let's look at the obvious. Those guys are huge guys. Probably would have done damn well with just about any approach, anyways. So I'm in a position kind of where, like, I don't care for the old school, but I don't care for the new school either.
At Oregon State University when I was a kid, Mickey Riley, his son, was one of my best friends. So Jack was always teaching about Ted Williams and his whole swing, his whole approach. The difference was a lot of people weren't teaching that.
Right.
So you had this conflict. Now it seems like everybody's freed up, unlocked. It's all about power. And now they said, well, Ted Williams, this works. Well, duh.
Yeah, he knew. Ted Williams always said he tried to hit every ball in the air.
It's fun. Like, people, they're not just coming out and saying it. The reason why they're equating Ted Williams with today's approach, once again, is because the only thing that today's approach is really saying is swing up more. And that's the main thing that everyone got from Ted Williams' book. Whenever people quote the book, it's almost always that Ted Williams said, match the plane of the pitch with your swing. And you guys probably know, I've said it before, I don't think that swinging up or swinging down matters. It doesn't really matter that much. Try to match the plane of the pitch as best you can, maybe. But if you swing down more, you tend to get more backspin and the ball kind of carries farther. If you swing up more, then obviously you're going to tend to lift the ball in the air a little bit more. So tomato, it kind of leads to the same thing. That the thing that really matters is how much force you're putting on the ball. But this whole thing, like, seriously, like, they're not coming out and saying it, but they're just saying, basically, the main difference between today's swing and the swing of 20 years ago is it was taught to swing down, and now they're teaching to swing up and going for home runs. There needs to be more. Whenever I hear guys like this talk, it really seems like, even though they probably see themselves as very much experts of the swing, to me they appear like complete dilettantes, like barely scratching the surface, never had been really curious about the swing. That's just how it seems to me. You know,
he wanted to hit every ball in the air, which was radical in 1940 and 1950.
talking about hitting the ball in the air.
Ted Williams wrote a book called The Science of Hitting, which talks a lot about the stuff that we are now talking about 50 years later. But
if you're talking about the stuff Ted Williams wrote about in The Science of Hitting, then you're talking about stuff that really didn't do all that much. I'm sorry, but Ted Williams' book, like everyone wants to say it's just the most brilliant book. I don't see what's so brilliant about it. I'm sorry. Like I said, he said swing up more. He never, to my mind, touched on any of the things that really matter in the swing. You know, and a lot of these books, including like a Ben Hogan book, or which is also glamorized in golf instruction, and a lot of the stuff is so ambiguous. It's so like hard to pin down exactly what they're saying. I think the thing that really made Ted Williams great was that he utilized more lead side pull and less back arm push. And he never mentioned that. And to me, if you're not mentioning that, if that's not the topic of conversation, then you are touching on things that only have minute importance in the swing.
But there's always been this thought about hitting. You think about Tony Gwynn's book. What's that called? The Art of Hitting, which Ted Williams thought of as a science. Tony Gwynn thought of it as an art. And I think increasingly today, the science part is winning out with all the data and technology that shows like, hey, maybe Ted knew a few things without just sort of intuitively.
I think the difference with this, though, is that there's not one way to hit a baseball. And we're trying to put everybody in one capsule. For me to hit the ball in the air, I was out. I'm not going to hit the ball out of the ballpark.
Okay, this is an interesting viewpoint that I encounter all the time. All the time I hear guys say, it's basically the everyone has to find their own best way to swing argument. This is another argument by people who just want to throw their hands up and say, there is no answer. It's just everyone has to find their own. For me, listen, Harold Reynolds, of course, just swinging up for Harold Reynolds isn't going to do anything. His swing was terrible. It was not powerful. He was taking his hands directly in front of his chest and achieving a very disconnected position at contact. So he tries swinging up, it doesn't work for him, and he throws his hands up and says, everyone's got to find their own best way to swing. There's no answer to the swing. Do you see how, like, I believe we are similar enough that there is an answer to the swing. And what's kind of insulting to me when I hear people say that is, I never stopped looking. I tormented myself. I tried this method. I tried that. I tried new ideas all the time. Every night I was trying to think of something that would change and feel different and make the ball fly differently. And I never gave up. I never did just throw my hands up and say everyone's got to find his own best way to swing. If you don't look into the swing, you don't have to have an opinion. It's almost like everybody out there feels like I got to have a strong opinion about something. No, you don't. You can just say I don't know. And Harold Reynolds never had any curiosity about the swing. I can tell. He's one of these hands to the ball. We've seen him in front of that wall teaching hands to the ball. Well, someone like that never had any curiosity for the swing. I mean, it only takes a little bit of studying of the greatest hitters, Ruth, Williams, and all the way up to the present day. His own teammate, Ken Griffey Jr., he never stopped to look at the video. And it's so funny because with all these swing coaches who are mostly doing teaching things that don't really improve hitters. I'm sorry. I know this guy wrote a whole book about these swing coaches. And I know people believe they are improving hitters, but to me, it's just the law of averages. There are a lot of guys working with guys who don't improve, who get worse, but you don't hear about them. So we're only hearing about these guys who happen to work with guys who improved and give credit to these guys. But anyways, let's just continue.
400-foot fly out, and I'm going back to first base. So I had to figure out hit the ball. Pete Rose hit every ball up the middle. Did it for 4,256 hits. His approach was hit the ball up the middle. That's not a teaching tool of today. So I think we have to get each individual has different things and tools that they can do. I think today's game we're teaching one thing and one thing only: hit the ball in the air, hit for power. I think we're losing a lot of players.
Well, I think
That's just mine.
I think good coaches do.
Okay, so again, it's so frustrating for me because we have these two schools, these two camps today, and they're bickering back and forth, right? Teaching basically guys who are more in favor of the 80s and 90s style swing and guys who are more in favor of the 2000s, 20 teens swing that is being taught today. And I'm on the outside saying, guys, you're all off base. You're all arguing about stuff that is just inconsequential, that's not important. Let's look at what 95 to 99% of swing mechanics is about, and that's utilizing more lead side pull and less back arm push. And if you're not talking about those things, and none of these guys are, then it's just a bunch of red herrings being thrown out. Just a bunch of good tries. But nothing there, nothing substantial.
You understand that every hitter's different, and that ultimately the object hit the ball hard. If you hit the ball hard, whether it's in the air or on the ground,
I agree with that.
That's good. And the other thing is, in the air does not necessarily mean fly ball. Line drives is in the air too. Yeah. With the rise of defensive shifts, for instance, and teams are so much better at putting fielders where they need to be, ground balls are harder to get through the infield today than ever before. How often do you see balls up the middle where the shortstop is standing right behind second?
So I'm curious, real quick.
I want to ask about some specific stuff.
Yeah, we're going to get into this because I'm curious. As you started into this journey, what did you learn along the way that you kind of went, wow, I hadn't thought about that?
Well, one thing I learned a lot from talking to a lot of players through the years is how many players feel that they were better hitters or swung better before they got any coaching.
This is it. This is interesting. Now, listen to this. This I hear all the time. This is just indicative of most swing coaches don't know what they're talking about and are making hitters worse. We have, I don't know if it's this country or what, but I actually learned this from my years of caddying, how much people cannot be in the I don't know stage. I won't get into how I learned at caddying, but I will for a second. The reason why I learned that caddying is literally seconds after a guy would take a swing. This would happen all the time. He would diagnose exactly what he did wrong in his swing and walk away feeling good that he figured it out. And I just would think, no video, no real analysis of anything that happened. And in a matter of a few seconds, he diagnosed exactly what he was doing wrong and knew exactly what prescription he needed to fix it. And it's like, we can't even spend a minute, much less a day, much less a year or 10 years or 20 years in the stage of, I don't know. And I think that if I have a power in this game, it's been my ability to admit, I don't know. I mean, I worked with MLB guys, and then I took time away because when I could have made a lot more money, I didn't want to do that because I knew that I was not finished in my quest to understand the swing. And I'm less comfortable acting like I know than I am in the stage of in a state of not knowing. But for some reason, that's not the case with most people. And these coaches, man, it's another thing that frustrates me. I can just see them, grabbing a young guy. These words, they just make me cringe. That swing may have worked at this level, but it won't work at the blank, fill in the blank, college, double A, triple A, major leagues. That is BS, man. If a swing works really well in Little League, most likely, I mean, if there's a pound for pound great hitter in Little League, he's probably got a great swing, guys. A great swing works at any level. This whole idea that you have to change your swing, but that's what happens, guys. And then guys who have naturally good swings and never had to think about swing mechanics, they're going into they encounter these MLB coaches who are, watching over them every 2 seconds, and they think, man, maybe it's time to get serious about swing mechanics and do what this guy's telling me and swing more inside out and push my hands to the ball. And they get worse. And front offices have no idea this is going on. It's really crazy, man. It's really crazy. And it's still going on, guys. I know that the desire and the tendency right now in all of you and everyone out there is, oh, but nowadays we got things figured out. No, it may be worse than ever these days. These guys with all this technology, that's not figuring things out. Just because you have the launch angle and exit velo of every hit that's done in practice, you think that's figuring something out? These guys are teaching basically the same stuff that Richard Skank is teaching. Which is a whole nother rabbit hole we can talk about. I mean, that whole thing is just, here this guy basically won the lottery by working with the largest, strongest hitter that's ever stepped into the box. And everyone just dismisses this guy's size. And it's a theory based on Barry Bonds. Everyone dismisses that Barry Bonds gained 40 or 50 pounds of muscle. This is all going to come crashing down. And I really think that at some point, and again, I've said it before, I may be dead and gone when it happens. But at some point, the more lead side action of the swing, the importance of utilizing more of your lead side will hit the mainstream, and it'll become common knowledge. And that's when you're going to see a similar revolution to the whole Moneyball revolution.
That's at the pro level, that whatever they did naturally worked so well, they get to pro ball, and some minor league coach says, that's not going to work in double A. That's not going to work at triple A. They change to seem coachable, to not get cut, and then they go down. And
I hear this all the time. In fact, there are players I work with, we actually look at their swing from when they're 7 and 8 years old. These are high-level players. And we're looking at their swing from 7 and 8. And they're trying to get back to that. This is no joke, man. Guys, and this is why we're losing to all these other countries. Thank goodness, though, they're starting to do the stupid drills that guys are doing in this country. So at least we'll probably have a good shot the next few years. But countries with fractions of the population that we have, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, even Japan, these countries don't have even close to the population that we have. And they're beating us. He's 100% right here.
They say, man, I was better when I was just doing my own thing. So I think there has been a lot of overcoaching through the years. And the other,
it's not over. See, there's a quick like blaming of the wrong thing. You see that happens so much in this space. Guys just say, and therefore blank. Okay, let's move on. No, it's not overcoaching. It's coaching the wrong stuff. Let's call a spade here. It's coaching the wrong stuff. If you're coaching the right stuff, then guys improve. And but people think that there's no other possibility out there. What's been coached, like they just have this, they can't see outside of the box, basically. They only see that everything that's been taught about the swing is the only possible things that can be taught about the swing. And so, clearly, because of the past and what's been taught about the swing, there's no real way to do all that much improvement. You know, and nobody has all that much hope for swing instruction and what it can do. Because they don't see that there actually is something that can change the swing for the better and drastically. That you have to make them see that this is kind of like equated to scouting in the 90s. Nobody scouting in the 90s would have said that that anyone could do any better than what they were doing. Then Moneyball comes along. They never would have guessed. Oh, yeah. Use equations. Oh, my God. I never even. Okay, so yeah, I guess scouting can be done better. Way better. It's stepping outside the box. You see? That's what needs to be done with regards to the swing. There's so much bickering back and forth of these guys who all are on the wrong page. They have some things that they're saying that are kind of right, but they don't even understand why they're right. And then the other side, the same thing, but none of them can see outside the box. They don't have an understanding of the swing that is true. That is more true. So everyone's kind of bickering about stuff that's been taught up to now in the mainstream of swing instruction. And yeah, that stuff hasn't worked, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not just because it hasn't worked up till now, that doesn't mean that defines swing instruction. We're in for a revolution in swing instruction. Just when everybody thinks, oh, you know, it's all a bunch of baloney, this swing stuff. For crying out loud, nothing's going to work. Nothing has worked. Just when people are getting the most jaded, that's when it's actually going to hit this more lead side understanding.
The thing that really surprised me is how often players through the years, not as much today, would say they'd be in single A, they'd have a hitting coach tell them one thing, they then go to the next level and hear the exact opposite from that next coach.
Right.
That lack of sort of organizational mission, which I think teams now are better at, where they hire top down, and
for sure,
every coach in the organization is on message and teaching the same thing.
I don't think that's true. There's no way that's true. I know that coaches are teaching different stuff within an organization. They may try, but you know they're whispering like, hey, I don't think, John. Like everyone's got a strong opinion when it comes to the swing. It's like religion and diet. But again, just because let's say everyone is on the same page, if they're not talking more lead side, it's the wrong page. So who cares if they're all on the same page?
So let me ask you specifically and about, you know, one of the stories and one of the people, I won't say characters because he's a real human, that you talk about in the book, Robert Van Scoyoc, who's the Dodgers hitting coach, who, and correct me if I'm wrong here, began his career and refining his craft literally in a garage in Southern California. And then some players came under his influence, word spread, and it was this whole word of mouth, hey, this guy's great, you got to work with him. Robert gets great reviews. He's the guy credited with helping turn around J.D. Martinez, Justin Turner, etc. Do I have that story right? Is that how the guy became one of the premier voices in this cottage industry?
Yeah, it's pretty close. He was a so-so baseball player in high school, played at junior college, was never much of a player. After junior college, he goes back to his old mentor, a guy named Craig Wallenbrock, who's about 75 years old, runs a facility in Southern California, a guy that's sort of been very quietly been working with hitters for decades without any fanfare, without any recognition. And Robert kind of becomes his mentor, mentor-mentee relationship. Then one day JD comes in. JD heard about Craig from Jason Castro, who had some success with the Astros back in 2012, 2013. And he remakes his whole swing with these two guys, Craig and Robert, remaking his swing. And as time goes on, JD and Robert became very close. They're around the same age. Robert had sort of this energy where I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go see JD in Detroit, in Florida, wherever he is. And they sort of went off on their own direction, whereas Robert kind of takes off, branches off from Craig Wallenbrock, who's sort of the godfather of all of this. So many of these coaches stem off of this Craig Wallenbrock tree. But Robert ends up taking a life of his own, building this relationship with JD, and now he's a major league hitting coach, which is remarkable. And Craig Wallenbrock also now works for the Dodgers as a consultant. And Brant Brown, all these guys, all were working together in a garage in Southern California.
So my one last question for you. What's the basic premise of his teaching? What's he teaching?
Well,
that's a great question. That's a great question. Good for Harold Reynolds. And let's see where he goes.
He was a very early adopter of video, first of all, when this was not trendy. Craig Wallenbrock had an old video camera that was probably as big as a movie producer.
That's not answering the question. See, this is a question that I can answer real quickly. More lead side. 3 words. That's the difference. Everyone else wants to go off and, what are we teaching that's different? Oh, well, hold on. We need to talk about X, Y, and Z, and then maybe I'll touch on what you asked about. That's how you know somebody is not. Remember, anything, when you understand something, and I know there's the Einstein quote, but I'm not trying to do the Einstein quote. This is something I've realized independently of Einstein, actually. I realized that if you truly know something, then there should be a very simple way to understand it and explain it. So just the fact that Wallenbrock was into video, that's not explaining what he teaches. And Wallenbrock, I don't think, could explain exactly what he teaches that's different. I've seen what Wallenbrock teaches. I think he's off in left field. I don't think that there's anything of value that they teach. Now people say, oh, but he worked with X player and that player, and look how much they improved. Well, okay. He probably has worked with a lot of other players who didn't improve as well, but you don't hear about them. But when something truly comes along, and I believe that the more lead side will do this, and when it comes along and makes its impact, there won't be any obscurity to it. There won't be any ambiguousness. Ambiguity? That's what it is. Ambiguity to it. It'll be obvious. There won't be, oh, it worked for this guy who's 6'8", but it didn't work for too many other people who are, less than 200 pounds. No. It will be a big impact. It'll be as undeniable as Moneyball. When we understand the more lead side action on a large scale.
Projector back in the 70s and started filming players, big league players that he knew from his local community in Southern California. And he would sort of say to them, this is what I see you doing. And those players would say, I don't do that. And he would say, it's right here on the video. And video was so sort of verboten back then. They said, if you needed video, it means you didn't know what you were doing, you couldn't hit. And they sort of he started learning, started seeing what players were doing. And what they really teach is this idea of bat path. That ideal bat path is not down. It's not necessarily on a straight line. You hear so often, just take the knob to the ball. Well, many great hitters don't just take the knob to the ball. They get their bat behind the...
Once again, he's just talking swing up versus swing down. That's what the argument between these two camps always ends up being, mostly an argument of swing up or swing down. I'm not interested in that. These guys can argue all that junk. That is very surface level dilettante kind of conversations. You haven't done your homework. You're just surface level people.
The ball to stay on plane of the pitch for as long as possible. And if you do it right, what it does is it gives you margin for error. It allows you to adjust. It allows you to sort of still hit the ball hard when your timing is a little bit off. And that's essentially what they teach. Don't just swing down, get behind the ball and swing slightly up, which is what Ted Williams said 50 years ago.
There you go. There you go. That's honestly, like, all these guys who think that they're so advanced in the swing, it's like swing up or swing down. Which camp are you in? I mean, it's like, come on, man. You guys really think that the answer to the swing is swing up or swing down? If that were the answer, we would have all been experts of the swing back when we were 6 years old, and that would have nailed it. Because everybody tried that at a young age. Let me try swinging up more. I'll try that. See how that works.
Stuff. Hey, Jared, thanks for the visit today. You'll be appearing on MLB Now.
So there you go, guys. You know, that's my reaction to this this video of Jared Diamond, author of Swing Kings. In that book, like I said, Andrew Friedman called my work instrumental and influential, but they didn't name me by my name. They just said who I worked with, and not sure. Maybe I'm ostracized by Major League Baseball for some reason. It's an interesting thing, man. It really is an interesting thing. I think that more guys are concerned with with themselves, and they don't really want. I mean, let's just look at Richard Skank. I mean, here's a guy who I think it's a red herring, but let's just look at it from maybe somebody who doesn't know the swing so well. The front office people. Like, here's a guy whose method is everywhere right now. He's teaching the best hitter in the game and getting good results. Why isn't he working for a team? I mean, I don't agree with his method at all. I think that it's a complete red herring. But why aren't people in, like, why isn't he being scouted? Like, what is going on? I mean, the best player, maybe the best right-handed hitter of all time, is praising this guy. Once again, I have to caveat, I don't think this guy has any understanding of the swing that's helpful. I really do. Actually, I should take that back. As I've said, the slotting action, that is superior just because he promotes that slot, he doesn't get it right, but I think that makes his method better than any other popular method out there, at least. You know? And by the way, I don't even think this slotting action is beneficial because it gets you on plane. I mean, that might be a slight benefit, but it's more about the positioning of your body and how it forces you into a more body controlled action when you drop the barrel. But it's very much more detailed. It's not confusing, but it's more detailed than just it gets you on plane, and so you can, you're on plane with the pitch. The pitch is coming in at this plane, and you're coming in at this plane, so you have a better chance. That's oversimplified. Way oversimplified. Anyways, the only reason why he's not been strongly pursued by at least 5 or 6 teams out there. The only reason is because Major League Baseball is just so resistant. I mean, here it is right in front of your face. I mean, it took a recalcitrant Billy Bean to, you know, to basically, you know, go against every wish of everyone around him to make the Moneyball change. And here, this guy, Richard Skank, teaching the best hitter in baseball right now, and no major league team has hired his swing coach. That just shows you, man, there's a bunch of, I don't know what it is. I mean, when money's involved, I feel like all that ego stuff should be thrown out the window, but apparently not. I mean, I guess human ego is even stronger than the desire to make millions of dollars. And honestly, I think Skank's method would be better than someone like, if Ben Skoyak is teaching the stuff Wallenbrock teaches, I think Skank's method would be better than most things out there. Why he's not got a Major League Baseball uniform on every single summer and working with players on a team, that just shows you, man, there's something that is so anti new and better in Major League Baseball. What's the word? It's a very simple word I'm looking for. But anyways, they don't care if something is better. If it's different, they don't want to hear it. You know? Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Check out my website, theswingmechanic.com. I have the lead arm training bat. I have the back arm trainer. I have the Swing Like Griffey ebook. I even have the physical book, which I sign if you buy that. There's a bunch of different packages you can get on the website now. As I said, I have merch. I have some. I have a hoodie and a t-shirt and hats. And I think you'll like the logo. It's a new logo. You guys are the best. Let's get this revolution going, man. You know, you guys are the heart of this revolution. Honestly, I just kickstarted it, but you guys are keeping it going, and I really respect you guys for finding me. It takes somebody who doesn't care about where everybody else is looking and is willing to look on the fringe to watch my stuff. So I appreciate that. And if you're still hanging in there with me at 53 minutes in, man, you are something special. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.